All right. I was just going to see if anybody else was going to join. Maybe, maybe not. You guys doing okay? So I'm gonna, since I missed last week, which thank you guys for being patient with me. I appreciate it. I just wanted to go through a few important things that we really need to kind of hold on to from chapter 6. And then I'll go over and kind of skim over some of the most important things from chapter 7 and not take too much of your time. Keep it within the hour. When it's about an hour long, it's easier for me to upload. Rather than when it goes too far over, I have a hard time doing that. So let's talk real quick about, this is the emotional and socialization of children. The chapter prior to that was all about the cognitive and the physical growth. So this side is our socio-emotional side. And for childhood, it is imperative, it's so important for kids to learn emotion regulation. They need to learn how to start regulating their emotions in order for them to be successful children, teenagers, and even adults. We see that little kids who don't grasp emotion regulation really struggle moving forward. They struggle in school, they struggle even as adults, forming relationships and holding jobs and all of those things. So really what we see is kind of the two extremes of emotion. We can have overly aggressive, and we can have the opposite of that, overly fearful and shy. So I guess if you're looking at a classroom setting, you have on one end the class bully, and then on the other end you have the class crybaby. And both of those two scenarios are going to make it very difficult for those children to be successful in class. So let's go over real quick just a little bit about those. So if we're talking about Erikson's stages, I know we haven't talked about Erikson actually. And well, he would come up right here. He wouldn't be in the cognitive side of it necessarily. So Erikson is like Piaget in that they were both staged theorists. They believe that people pass through a series of stages in their development. Piaget, of course, was the cognitive side of things. He studied cognitive development and how people begin to think about the world. Erikson studied the social side of development and how we develop socially. Okay, I'm not sure if this was mentioned back then in infancy. Erikson would have the trust versus mistrust. He says that babies need to learn trust in order to develop socially. A toddler needs to have autonomy versus shame and doubt. So a toddler needs to feel like they can do things. They're independent, they're autonomous. And then we start to get into the childhood stages. So early childhood, we'd have something called initiative versus guilt. And then later childhood, we'd have industry versus inferiority. So initiative, does this child try new things? Are they willing to go into a classroom? Are they willing to join the soccer team? Are they willing to hop on that bike and give it a go? Industry kind of feeds off of initiative. Industry is, do I feel confident in myself that I can work towards a goal? Can I work in a group setting and contribute to that group? Do I feel confident that I can, complete a task or something at school? Okay. And if you don't have a child that can do those, they can feel overly guilty and start to feel inferior compared to everybody else. Okay, so we'll hang on to that a little bit, and I think that that starts to pull into some of these emotions that little kids can't seem to regulate, or if they're having a problem regulating them, we see sometimes that this is kind of the root here. So we have little kids that can start to show externalizing or internalizing problems. And the kids that are the bullies, that are, you know, just kind of the mean kid, they're overly aggressive, they're the mean girl in class. Sometimes they have these externalizing problems. It's not their fault, it's everybody else's fault. Okay, I'm fine, it's them, they made me do this, or that person made me, you know, so mad that that's why I hit them. This could be a big problem, and as you can see here in this first box, this can lead to somebody who has what we call an inflated self-esteem or an inflated self-confidence. Because if they never see that it's their problem and it's everybody else's, then they can continue to feel like there's no reason to change. It's not me, it's a them. And so they continue to ignore the problem. And they can just constantly have failure when it comes to relationships, because, you know, let's be honest, right? It's kind of hard to be around someone like that that's has an overinflated self-esteem. They think they're, you know, all that, and it's everybody else's problem. It's going to be really hard to maintain relationships with someone like that. On the other side of it, an internalizing child, someone who is the opposite, if you want to think of it this way, somebody who it's all my fault. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me because I'm dumb. Nobody likes me because I'm stupid, or, you know, I'm ugly, or whatever it may be. They're overly self-critical. These can be your crybabies, you know, very early on. You know, they can overinflate failure. They can see failure where failure doesn't necessarily even exist. You can get people that, you know, I failed that test, now I'm going to fail class, and I'm so stupid, I should just drop out of school. And you can get that kind of downward spiral of thinking based on just one exam performance. Okay, so we really want to watch that, because these types of children can turn into that type of teenager, and then certainly could turn into that type of adult where they eventually just give up trying, because to them, there's no point. There's always going to be failure. They're always going to mess it up somehow. And that's where we get something that we call learned helplessness. Okay. And this is very common in people that we see to have internalizing problems. So an externalizing problem, we would have a person that has too much of a self-esteem. And then we have internalizing, where we have a child that has too low of a self-esteem. Okay. And self-esteem is important to bring up. Sorry, excuse me, my throat's still. Self-esteem is so important. Self-esteem is how you view yourself, right? It's your self-worth, the worth that you put on yourself. And you can see here on this slide, there's also something that's called self-efficacy. And they're very similar, but they're different. Okay, so self-esteem is how I view myself and how worthy I think I am. And self-efficacy is how competent I feel that I am, or how effective I feel. Okay, I guess to put it in an example is, do I feel like I am effective to enact change in my environment? Okay, can I do things to control the outcome of what I am experiencing or what my everyday life is like? So somebody who has an internalizing type self-esteem, who blames themselves, who feel so guilty about themselves, who feel like they shouldn't try anything because it's going to fail anyways, or they're not going to do well, probably has a really low self-efficacy as well. They don't feel competent. They don't feel that they can do well in a project. We know that both of those things, you know, even though they're separate, they're very closely intertwined, right? Usually, if I feel effective, then I feel good about myself. If I don't feel effective, then chances are I'm not going to feel good about myself. So we want to have children and teenagers and adults who feel effective, right? That they feel good about themselves, they feel effective, and that they have this mentality right here that if I work hard, I can succeed, right? If I put in the work, I can do it. So this is where you see these little charts come up in schools all over, right? And this is a visualization for a child to be able to see, wow, look at all that hard work I put in, and then I got rewarded. Okay, it's rewarding effort. And that's something that's good. We need to do that, right? We want to set realistic goals for children. If a goal is too high and it's just too unattainable, well, that child is going to either give up or they're just going to fail miserably, and then they're going to feel really bad about themselves, right? So you always want to have realistic goals. You know, for us as adults, this could be things like if we want to quit a habit, right? If it's smoking, if it's drinking, if it's eating unhealthy, or we want to gain a new habit, right? Of eating healthy, of exercising. You don't want to just shoot for that top goal, right? I'm going to lose 50 pounds. You've got to set in there more realistic goals that you can achieve on a smaller chunks or baby steps, so that one, it's appropriate, and two, it's achievable. Therefore, you feel effective and you feel good about yourself. If a child fails, or if you fail in your goals, you know, give accurate feedback. It's not that you're a loser. It's not that the child is dumb or stupid or anything along those lines. It's that whatever that task may have been, you know, maybe it was too hard. Maybe they didn't study well enough. Maybe it's a skill that they just need to practice a little bit harder on. So whenever we sit down and we have something like a failure, or a goal wasn't attained, you want to really try and break those down and talk about what was done well, and then what we could work on. Okay. And that's a good way to keep people motivated. And it's a good way to just set realistic goals, you know, and little kids with adults, especially their moms, they know their moms are going to tell them anything positive, right? They know that their mom, oh, you're just saying that because you're my mom. And so it's like they don't really believe what you have to say. But if you give them a realistic goal or feedback, then it's much more believable than just, you know, kind of BSing someone, I think, if you want to think of it that way. Let's see, a little bit about pro-social behavior. We want to have kids that are pro-society, that help, that give, that show empathy, that have at least sympathy, you know, and share, all of those little things that we want to teach kids to do. I think it's important to know that it does need to be taught. Not all kids are just born empathetic. So We want to teach this, we want to model it, we want to certainly reward positive behaviors whenever we see them happening, okay? So pro-social behavior is any behavior that is pro-society, that helps society out, okay? This is in contrast to what we would say anti-social behavior. I know it's very common to hear things like, oh, I'm antisocial, I don't want to go to the party, but that's actually a misuse of the word in psychology terms. If you call yourself antisocial, you're essentially calling yourself a psychopath. So we don't use the word psychopath and sociopath anymore in psychology because the media ruined it. Whenever we hear psychopath, we automatically think of a serial killer. And that's not what it is. It's a psychopath, or what we now call antisocial personality disorder, is somebody who will lie, cheat, steal. They have no remorse. They have no guilt in those activities. If they steal from you, this could be friends and family, they don't care. They just kind of see you as, it was your fault, you're the sucker, that you left your money out like that. So if you get somebody who is like that and they just so happen to like to kill people, then you have a really bad person, right? Because they're killing and they have no remorse, they have no guilt. And that's where we get like those serial killers and so on. And so instead of calling them a psychopath, we now call people like this antisocial, because not all are serial killers, right? Many of them are politicians. They make great salespeople. If they start to break the law, then yeah, they're like your con men and, you know, things like that. So anyways, antisocial, that's the difference. And the opposite is this pro-social, for society. So just a little example here, you know, to get pro-social behavior. If you see a child do something that's not the nicest activity, you know, they pushed, maybe this little boy pushed that girl off of the razor, or that little, what do they call those things? I don't know, whatever that little thing is. Then you want to come in and, you know, maybe kind of guilt them into their feelings. We say you don't necessarily want to shame them. Shame is a very strong emotion. It's negative. It's angry. Okay, but guilt is just a little bit different. Okay, and sometimes you do hear parents say this. They might say, wow, you know, that's so sad that you did that to Sally. How would you feel if she had done that to you? Okay, doing something like that invokes feelings of guilt. Okay, they know that if someone had done that to them, they would feel really bad about it. Okay, so guilt, you know, it's, you don't want to guilt them all the time. Some mothers are really good at guilting their kids into doing everything. You want to use it in moderation. You don't want to be the major person that makes people do everything because they're guilting them into it. But you know, it's certainly better than shaming, that's for sure. So anytime, let's see, you know, you want your kids to be pro-social, again, you know, maybe using guilt in a time that they really did do something quite bad. Teach them empathy, right? That we want to feel how someone else might be feeling in a situation. You know, also, of course, if you see, like, say this little boy was helping this little girl get up, you would certainly want to reward that behavior and say, hey, you know, Billy, I saw that you went over and you helped, you know, little Susan get up. That's so nice of you. What a good person, what a good friend that you are, that you helped her. Okay, and those are really good feelings for somebody, and it's very likely that they'll continue to do things like that because we like to feel good about ourselves. Aggression, aggression is, something that we see in little kids. They say it peaks at about 2.5 years. And so little kids can be overly aggressive. Um, we do not mean the word assertive here. Okay, so aggressive, sometimes you hear people out on the street say, oh my God, that girl is so aggressive. Well, unless she was meaning to harm you, she's not being aggressive. If she's just stating her boundaries and stating her opinion, then that's assertive. Okay, aggressive is a hostile act. It's intent on causing harm, either physical harm or mental harm. Okay, so aggression is a bad thing, right? Being assertive, you're not necessarily trying to hurt anyone's feelings. You're just standing up for yourself. So little kids and aggression, we have different types of aggression. Okay, so right here we have one, you can see it says proactive aggression, and then down here we have reactive aggression. Okay, so proactive aggression is cold, it's calculated, it's manipulative. This person is acting in a way and they're using aggression to get something. Okay, so if I push someone out of line so that I could get the cupcake first, then I am using that aggression to get something that I want. Okay, I'm not mad, I'm not angry, I'm very cold and calculated, right? If I push her, I can get the cupcake first. Okay, reactive aggression is just like what it sounds. It's somebody who's reacting to getting, something happen to you. So I push Sally out of the way and I get the cupcake with the pink sparkles. Well, maybe Sally's really angry, right? She's going to be hurt. She's going to be angry. She's going to be really mad, right, that I did that. So when she comes back at me, she's going to be very angry. Her aggression is going to be hot-tempered. It's going to be a fury. It's going to be a frenzy. It's going to be very angry. Okay. You can think of a situation like this in, like, say, a murder charge, right? A murder charge. We're always trying to see, was it planned? Was it calculated? Was it premeditated, right? Those types of murders, those are evil people, right? They thought about it for a long time. They planned it. And a reactive murder is one that we would think of in a sense of a crime of passion, right? Maybe husband came home and caught his wife with another man and he got the gun and shot the guy. He didn't plan to do that. He didn't, think it through or anything like that. It was just in that moment because he was reacting to being so hurt. Okay. So I think that's important to remember. Proactive is, they're fine. They're not angry. That reactive aggression is really the most angry type. We also have another way to break up aggression. One of them is called direct aggression. This is the boys fighting, right? Boys are infamous for direct aggression. They're rolling around, they're fighting each other. Everyone can see it. And it is, again, like I said, very, very common in boys. Relational aggression is using relationships or friendship as a tool of aggression. And this is very common in girls. Little boys do it too, but it's very common in girls. And this is where you hear things like, I'm not going to be your friend if you're friends with her. Or we're all in this one group because we hate, I don't know, Katie. Okay. It continues on. It can happen in middle school and high school and into adulthood. but they do say that it peaks in adolescence. But these are your mean girls, right? They don't want somebody a part of the group. Let's see, just wanted to see real quick what else is on here. You know, obviously, bullying is important to cover. I think we all know what bullying is, so I'm just going to spend a little bit of time on this and not too much time. Bullying is systematic, it's repetitive, it's planned, it's targeted towards a person. So we want to be careful. Sometimes we say things like, oh, I got bullied and I was fine. You might hear older people say things like that. You know, do people get picked on and get made fun of in school? Yes. Were they necessarily bullied? That's a different, you know, bullying, again, like we said, it's harassment, it's targeted, it's a one person, it's always on that one person over and over and over again. So we want to be careful with that. I think schools have gotten a lot better about talking about it. They certainly have a lot of activities to try and get kids to engage in it. They take these pledges that they're not going to do it. I don't know how successful those are because bullying has been around for a long time. I think it's important to know that if it's direct aggression, right, where they're punching each other or slapping each other, that's easier to see. And that's easier for teachers and administrators at lunch to see that that's happening. If it's relational aggression, you know, unless you're in the conversation of all of those kids all day, every day, then those teachers are going to have a really hard time of identifying that bullying going on. And I know that parents get very upset with schools and they say, you know, they didn't do anything, they didn't do anything. It's very hard to see. And I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying that the schools shouldn't do anything, but it's very difficult. Even y'all probably know, like, you don't even have to say anything. You know, if a group of kids are standing there and a kid walks by, you know, you can just do looks and that child already knows that it's a hostile environment, that it's intimidating, that and so I just say, if you know anybody that's going through this, please speak up, put it on the radar, let the school know exactly what's happening, so that at least they could be a little bit more cognizant of what's happening. You know, I can only imagine now, cyberbullying. I mean, look at this. This is like a picture of like a Nokia phone. I mean, it's so much more, you know, so much more advanced technology now, and all these social media and everything that's going on, that cyberbullying now has probably kicked up, you know, 1,000 notches. So we want to be careful with that too. Be careful of posting anything online. We obviously have people that can use things against you, pictures against you, and so on. So watch that. Watch your kids. Watch your kids with those things. Any questions right there while I switch